All right. Hello and welcome to Wake Up Our Faith. This is the show where passion, purpose, and dreaming big challenge common sense. We like to think of it as a conversation to shed light on the upside of upside down living. Matt Ham, Kevin Adams with you today. No technical difficulties. We are cooking with Crisco, rocking and rolling to you here live on Facebook. Kevin, what's up, man?
Crisco, man, fried chicken with Crisco is unbeatable. It's horrible for you, but it's so good.
It is the best. There's always room for Crisco. That's just what that goes to prove, right?
Yeah, or you can slip and slide, make a slip and slide in your wooden floor.
Amen. Well, Kev, man, as I jump on here, I'm going to get this shared out to Facebook so folks can jump on and join us. Man, just kind of catch us up real quick on how you're doing and what your thoughts are kind of moving into today's show.
Yeah, well, I think one of the big things we've been talking about the word and recalibration and letting go versus losing, and what is pruning about, and all these different things. And so another kind of step in the right direction from there is, where is your focus? So we're calling today's episode Keep Your Eye on the Why, or Keeping Your Eye on the Why. And so we're going to talk about the why.
I love it, man. I love like that phrase. You told me, you said, hey, man, today I think it's keeping the eye on the why. And I'm like, whoo, that is lit up, man. That's so
yeah. Well, it's encouraging. You're good. You're good. You encourage me. So let's go, man. Let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Hey, real quick, Kev, before we jump in, I do want to recognize our corporate partners. I tried to pull them up a minute ago, but it didn't work. So I'm going to do that real quick because I want to recognize them, and we're going to dive in. So for those who are joining, thank you so much. We want to recognize our corporate partners for making this show possible. You can see them here on the screen. We've got our dear friend, Melissa, the coach, who is a speaker, personal finance coach. She helps people kind of minimalize and organize their life so they can pursue their why, which is what we're going to be talking about today. We've also got our good friend, Chris Hutchins, and his team at Guaranteed Rate Mortgage, Dr. Greg Veman at Seacoast Skin Surgery, the Honeycutt Group, Chad Honeycutt and his team, an insurance brokerage company right here in Wilmington. Century 21 Swalyer and Associates is a real estate partner here in town, full service real estate company. And we're going to get back to the rest of those during our second segment. So we've got some folks tuning in now. We'd love for you guys to let us know where you're listening from, where you're watching from. Join us. We'll be here for about 30 minutes, 2 15-minute segments or so. And today's topic, as Kevin has said, is keeping your eye on the why. So Kevin, let's go ahead and launch into this, man.
Yeah, well, I feel like I always slow you down. You got that good audio, go. I'm like, I'm from over there, and I just want to say a couple things. Sorry, keep me going. But yeah, keep your eye on the why. It's a big deal. I had a fella, a good friend, actually. Working with yesterday, had a good long meeting in the park, which was great, man. But he said, I said, man, we're going to change 1 million lives together. And I said, you can change 1 million lives. And I say it every week or every other week when we get together. And he looked at me, he says, how can I change 1 million lives? And my response was, you're asking the wrong question. So what's the right question? And that's what we're talking about. It's not bad, but his question was how. And what does that do immediately? If something's going on with you, you got a cool thing happening, God's starting to stir your heart up. What happens immediately if somebody says, how? But how? Or you live in how? What happens to your heart, man?
Yeah, it's like it's a big boulder that they just shackle onto your ankle, and it's heaviness, it's weight. It forces the mind to start doing this thing up here, and it just completely removes the sovereignty and supernatural provision of the Lord and minimize. Right. it's trying to force God back into a box. It's like, get in this box of how.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's never been there. So we're just trying to force him in there.
Right. That's right. It's not back in the box.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's true. And, you know, so what we can know, and look, I'm not saying, here's our caveat. We got to have a caveat, right? If you are going to make a birthday cake, you need the how. If you're going to turn the light on, you need to go do the switch. This is not that. We're talking about spiritual journey. We're talking about being led by the Spirit, from the Spirit up, implanted word in you, talking, breathing life about you. And we're talking about walking by faith, which is the physical written word, taking it in, eating the scroll, taking it into our heart, and guarding our heart from the appetites of the world and all the worrisome news and all that stuff. And we're recognizing that God's doing great things, and we're focusing on that. So what's a key part of that and not a key part of that is, from a spiritual discernment, is how is over here and why is over here.
Yeah.
Now, so what my answer to our friend, and this has happened over and over, and that's why I know God's really pushing on this right now, is you're asking the wrong question. So what's the right question? The question is, instead of saying, how can I help a million people? The question is, why? And or the flip side of that, or the B side of that same great album, is why not? And if you could, would you? That's all on this side over here. So we got to focus on that kind of stuff. Now, how do we know that's true? Well, all I can say is I know it's true from my life experience, and, you know, having done all kind of things, from creating technology, bringing products to market, doing all kind of things that God's done through me, and having a lot of success at it, and then having a whole lot more failures at it. But the key thing in all of that, and the key thing in all the innovative people throughout history, isn't how, it's why.
Yeah.
It's why. That will move you forward. So one is tapping into God's Spirit. And we're not talking about, you know, a lot of people don't glorify God. That's between them, and at the end of their days, it's a pretty bad deal, but we are. So, but everybody, there's prevenient grace. Everybody has this. They have this availability to them because God created it that way. But the how, it's like sticking a knife into your tires. You know, it lets the air out.
Yeah.
And again, we're not saying that the word how is evil. We're just saying it's got to be in the right place. It's got to be applicable and not lead. So go ahead.
Well, there's a heavenly order. There's a heavenly order to purpose, right? Heavenly purpose has an order. And, you know, one of the things that you teach, that we teach at UPrint through our mentoring program, is that, you know, purpose is the problem that you've been designed to solve. And I love that. And there's so much depth to it of how you unpack it and the, you know, the details there. But the genius and innovation always come to the table to provide a solution to a problem. And that is directly tied to the why question, and instead of the how question. And that's the spiritual question. The how question is a logical question. And like you said, it so easily deflates a good idea. And, you know, so many good ideas, so many godly kingdom ideas and purposes die on the roadside of how. And
that's right.
And people, we have to recognize that the enemy is going to weaponize. It's like this. It's like we were reading just this morning with one of our corporate calls. I was reading David and Goliath, and I was speaking it to their life. And, you know, it's interesting is David comes to the front lines and he's like, wait a second, you talking against my God? You know,
that's right.
And he says, I'm going to step up because I know who I'm here for. And his older brother is like, how are you, what do you do? His older brother deflates him. His older
Yeah.
brother sticks the air, the knife in the tire.
That's
So
right.
this is biblical precedence of why this matters so much.
Well, that's the other side of the coin, in the good, or the good album, right? The A and the B side. Now we've got the written word. We got the written word, we've got the implanted word. And these two things are married together, and you cannot academically grab hold of the Bible. God has to speak to you about it, but it doesn't contradict, it confirms, and it works all together. So the other side of this is when we look at how, from his perspective, what we see in Scripture is, we see some verses. There's lots of them, right? Lean not upon your own understanding, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. We see some plant, some water. Only God knows how the seed grows. There's lots of that. But we also see incredible stories with hero after hero after hero, men and women. What's the common theme? The common theme is why let go of how.
Yes.
Moses did not know how this was going to happen. Abraham did not know how God would honor the covenant. Gideon did not know how he was going to defeat, 125,000 or whatever it was with just a few hundred. You name it. Joseph, Joshua, Esther, it's all of it is the same exact thing. Let go of, yeah, but how? And so you got the Sanballats and all these people throughout history who are being weaponized, and they're saying, how are you going to do that? And, forget it. You need a why. All you need is the why. Why? And so then what happens? God becomes the how.
Yes.
And why does he want to be the how? Why? What happens when he is the how?
He gets the credit.
Yes.
He's glorified.
And that's all he wants. That's all he wants. He wants us to respect him and just to love on him and give him that affection and honor. And boy, that's some good ground to stand on. And so we want to do that because he is everything. But he wants us to have the victory. We get to enjoy the victory. So when we let go of the how, here's what we let go of. We let go of our will, because our will is what? All about self-preservation. The will isn't a bad thing. God gave it to us, but it's got to follow. It's got to yield to him. And, so there's a lot there, but the simplicity of this is, we let go of self-preservation, our own understanding, glory to me by accident, and our own strength. And it's the hardest thing for people to do. Yeah, but how? Yeah, but. Oh, I know now why I had to go through what I went through in my life, because I have to stand on this. But I think people deeply get a hold of this. It's just, it's hard. We keep defaulting back to, you have a bad week or a bad month or difficulties, and you get pushed back into your cubby hole. When you pop out there, the enemy, he throws a spitball at you or thumps you or distracts you or whatever. So we've got to encourage one another to let that why out. And there's, we got some things we can talk about and how to practice that a little bit.
Yeah. The key first takeaway that's just resonating in my heart is that people have to get the why.
Yeah.
And what is keeping the why from taking root in their lives is the fact that they're focusing on how.
Yeah.
And it's like the how is now the obstacle to your why. And it was never intended to be that way. So there are people whose heavenly purpose is literally dying in their life because they are consumed by the how.
That's
and
right.
What we are here to do today and in our organization is to help kill off the how, which is the logic, which happens through discipleship, which happens through purification, which happens through surrender, so that whys can be birthed. It's like it's like Hal puts a blanket over the seed that's been planted by the Lord, and we're here to just boom, pull the blanket back and let the
Right.
seed begin to germinate. The why seed has to germinate.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Look, I've seen things in my life that there's no way to. All you can do is just say, God, keep doing it.
Yeah.
And I don't want to know how. I don't want to know that. You just lead me, and I'm going to go. I want to feel you. And that is exactly going back to David, who ran up to Goliath.
Yes.
David, he just knew. How do you know? You want to know God's will and know and step in. If you really want to know it, you have to rely on it. And that, what does that mean? That means you got to let go of your own will. Our will isn't a bad thing, but if it runs wild, what happens is we become academic. We become kings of our own, domains, and it's humanism, and it always leads to one place: failure and death.
Yes.
It's a little fun being a king along the way for a while, but it doesn't lead anywhere. So what we've got here is, I'm going to use this. We've got now, this is how we can know. And I did this a little early, but I'm using my arm here. I'm trying to make a line. I don't know how to draw on the Zoom thing, but this is human adaptability. Follows a line about like this. I mean, we're getting better at it since the horse's carriage, right? We can adapt faster now than we ever have. So that line is about, I don't know, what is that, a 40-degree angle or something?
Yeah.
So then now you got technology. Well, technology is doing this, and it's just, it is shooting, it is rocketing up. And the Bible talks about this, and we're there. And so now what you got is human adaptability can no longer keep up with technology. So you got doom and gloom people over here who's, well, the robots are going to take over and AI, and man, okay, that's fine if you believe that. And certainly the technological ability for that, it exists. But what they leave out is a relationship with the creator, who is above and far beyond all that. So what we've got to learn to do to surpass our own adaptability is let go of our academic smarts, logic, all this stuff that has worked for years. We fought, and we've got to be faithful. Faith is the thing. Faith is the wealth of today and the future. And, if people don't believe it, I'm sorry, but it's just true. And the Bible teaches us that through example. It's just points to it over and over, but people don't truly take God at his word. So the discipleship process connects the dots, but it takes time because it has to germinate in you. So what I'm saying is, ultimately, and we can pause and do another segment here, but we've got to engage our faith, and that is all about letting him. We delight ourselves in him, and then so we trade our will. What does he give us? He gives us the desires of our heart, and they're already there. And guess what? That's all wrapped up in why am I here? My creative abilities and the things I just love, and then how they meet the earth. How can I solve problems and fix a problem, or create a justice where there wasn't one? I mean, you put those two things together, now we're kind of acting like Jesus.
Yeah. I love this whole idea that you've brought up here about human adaptability and technology and the advancements of technology. That technology, essentially, the way I see this is technology is advancing so fast that we can't possibly keep up with it, because by the time we learn a new technology, that it's already changed.
That's
and it's kind of this idea of like, and every time you get a new Apple thing, they already got a new charger, so your old charger doesn't work. It's like, it's that whole thing. But the thing is with the Holy Spirit and with the supernatural power of God, we have a greater technology than technology itself. And the only way to keep up with the changing environment of technology is to live utterly by faith, by the leading of the Holy Spirit, because that is how we stay ahead, because it is the greater technology.
That's right. And it will always be. And so the wrapping, maybe this segment up is, just, we want to talk about, I think I think maybe, we've got enough meat there that people can grab hold of the idea. So let's talk about some things we can practice. For those who agree, here's some ways that you can kind of edify that and begin to really step into that.
Yeah.
And then your purpose will begin to bloom right before your eyes.
So, well, we're going to take a quick break, guys, and recognize our corporate partners for those who are joining us here. Again, talking about the why today versus the how. But let's take a quick break, recognize some of our corporate partners. We've got Freeman Landscape, Southeast's largest privately owned landscaping irrigation firm, the Rising Tide Real Estate Team, a full-service real estate team here in Southeastern North Carolina. We've got Russ Zimmerman and his family over there at Physical Therapy Services of Wilmington. That's PT Services of Wilmington.com on the web. Our good buddy Ryan Daly at R8D Designs, our digital design partner. We also have, they're not on the screen here, some good friends of the show, and that is Beach Blooms Florists down in Carolina Beach, as well as Journey to Heal Ministries. Journey to Heal Ministries focuses on helping people who have suffered from kind of sexual trauma in their lives. And so we say this and show this here because we have such a great team of corporate partners, of nonprofit partners, and this is not about, it's about a collective community of people who are bringing what they have to the table. These folks are functioning in their own genius and their own services and their own expertise areas. And then we help connect the dots, with people who come to us that have needs. We have business partners, corporate partners, and everybody's kind of working together. And it's just beautiful to see how it is working together. So appreciate those of you who are partnering with us. More partnership opportunities exist. If you guys want to get involved, we'd love to have you. So Kevin, today we're talking about the why versus the how. The why is a spiritual question that holds purpose in it. The how is a logical question that halts the purpose. And we said before we broke that we were going to provide a few practical, ideas on how folks can begin to step in and grow this.
Yeah. So in doing that, let me get my timer going here. You first of all, you want to look at, there is a dividing line. We just talked about it. It's a spiritual dividing line between sort of people that are struggling with their faith, and you're going to have to really continue on forward to grow into the meat, or people are going to fall back into what is academia, and where that leads to, and it leads to pulling apart things that it's destructive. So we can see that spiritual line. You can see it very clearly out there. That's probably enough for that. But then in the moment by moment, even the little battles that people face through circumstances, you have to see that the enemy continues to try to pull us away from what God has planned for us. That's all he can do, is distract. And so we don't give that power when we live by our own sight and willpower, and we don't edify the spirit. We stay away from the word, and we let culture in here and fill our heart up with that. Then we start to waffle around all the time. And it's because our heart belongs to God. I mean, how many times have you ever heard someone say, well, today I gave my mind to the Lord? You don't hear that. It comes along with the heart. What you do hear is, I gave my heart to God. I gave it to him, right? So that thing has to lead. And this is not a debatable thing. The heart is the battlefield. That's the connection point between the spirit man and the outer man. And the will is about self-preservation, which we need. But we've got to minimize that, bring that into submission. We've got to put a strong fortress around our heart, guard it. That's our good ground. So when that's connected with the spirit man, we're hearing what God's saying. When we're filling it with the word from the outside, it's unstoppable. So that said, what are some of the obstacles? The duty mentality, that becomes an obstacle. the word hard work, that's not even a word, it's two words, right? It sounds good. Got to work hard. Well, that comes from a different way of life. So we've glorified that. And hard work is good. It's very, it's got a good ethical kind of American flag and, all that. But hard work is like saying, well, we used to farm or we used to hunt and gather or whatever. It doesn't have the same meaning as it used to. We don't have to work that hard anymore. Now, I'm not saying people don't need to work with zeal, but they have to work from the heart. They have to work the things that God's given them hunger for. And so we have taken that word and, from a depression era all the way up through, the greatest generation up to now, and we're still talking about it. But you want to work from what God's doing in your life. And that's the thing that will be sustained. So why is over here? But over here, we've got this weird duty thing. Well, I got to, and I was talking to, I'll use the same guy as an example, but he's on lots of boards and he's doing a lot of different things. And, it's tough. But I think the feeling there is, wait a minute, why am I doing all this? Especially now when you got nothing but kind of a window of time to reflect. Now we're starting to recognize time is a resource. You don't want to waste it. So duty, we want to minimize duty. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that. You want to minimize duty and maximize desire. This is a spiritual landscape I'm talking about. So one of the points here is to minimize duty. Stop doing things out of duty and start to do things out of desire.
Well, duty is this, it has this air of nobility about it. And we trust in that because we think that that's the right thing to do, but we never pause to ask, is that the God thing to do?
That's right.
And there are a lot of people following the Lord out of duty.
Yep.
And that ain't the way the whole thing works. It's well, I go on Wednesdays or I go on Sundays, and well, how's that work for you during this season? Where's your duty in, your service to the Lord during this season? It's gone, which shows that it could never be about that anyway. If it ain't about that in this season, it could never have been about that, period. Otherwise, if it were about duty and church attendance, we're all done. And so it's like the Lord broke down that entire structure of duty and obligation to show us that following him is never about that in the first place. That's where we miss the mark.
Yeah. And that's the journey from knowing that you're saved and focusing on heaven to knowing that what Jesus was actually teaching us is that we are sons and daughters and we're in a family and heaven's included. It's way bigger and way better. So now we can look at it as affection out of honoring and loving and respecting and doing what our Father tells us. That's being like Jesus. That's what he modeled. That's what we've got to do. And so there is doing and there's hard work, but that we're not doing it out of some compulsion or competitive thing or approval spirit or fear. I got to do my duty. No, you got to do what God's leading you to do. And no one can judge your experience of that from their inexperience of it. So you've got to develop your listening ears to God by being in the written word and listening to the implanted word. Those two things are where the power and authority of God is working on earth. And we're seeing it. If people don't like it because they just want to figure it out and control it and over and over and over again. How? Yeah. And it's one of the enemy's greatest tools.
I remember I asked a guy one time, I said, hey man, if you could do anything in the world, what would you do? And he said, I would coach youth sports. And I said, well, then why aren't you? And he said, because that doesn't provide for my family. And I said, okay, what do you mean provide for your family? Like, what I'm saying? Like, are you talking about the lifestyle that you currently live now, which is way up here, Or are you talking about at all? I mean, because there are coaches that are providing for their family, and it kind of got mad and it kind of got down to the point of, well, I have to come to work. And I'm like, what do you mean you have to come to work? He's like, no, I have to come to work. No, you're making a choice every day to come to work because it's the system that you bought into. He's like, stop being philosophical. And I'm like, dude, you can't run from this argument. You're
right.
And what I think the greatest lesson I think I realized, Kevin, and when I left, my former career and all, is how much of my life was actually back then lived by obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And I never even realized it. I just did all this stuff because I was obligated to. I felt obligated to. It was my duty. And so I just did all this, but I wasn't actually living my life, the one that the Lord called me to live.
Yeah.
And so moving to a place of living free of obligation and duty is true freedom. Otherwise, it's captivity. And I absolutely, absolutely love this, man. I get so fired up when you bring these things to the table because it's just complete confirmation. We haven't talked about this, but it's what I know in my spirit just to be absolutely true.
Yeah, it is. It is true. And if people want more tangible proof of it, read my book. I'll send you a copy. It'd be nice to have a little donation for it, but if you can't afford it, we'll send you a copy. But it's living proof. You'll see it over and over again where God has come through. And that book was written years ago now. It came out 6 years ago, but it's now starting to take hold a little bit more because we're in a season where people are going to have to start to learn how to actually walk by faith and rely on God and quit calling themselves Christians if they don't even approach that. And but God's merciful and gentle, and we just want to help people, but you have to have that a little bit of fight too. But
as a testimony to that, real quick, you just had one of the more prominent figures in our community or whatnot who's just finished up the book. I mean, and what did he say? I mean, he said,
"Oh yeah, well yeah." He's like, "Man, I've not seen this. This is amazing kind of faith." And it's not about, hey, look at me. It's just, when you start getting too jacked up on how, God will remove how from your life so that he can get your attention. And that can be a very, very big upheaval. So, but yeah, I mean, he sees it and it's great because God's really developing some good relationships and family, friends. But we're going to go do all this together, but we're going to do it in the way he's designed us on top of the deeper things. So, over and over again, we're seeing the seeds that have been planted begin to germinate. But just to stay on track here, we want to minimize the duty mentality and maximize desire. What that does, it lets go of self-preservation. It lets go of hoarding. It lets go of all that stuff. And we're focusing on the desires, the good, sweet desires that God put in our heart. Mm-hmm. And when you start meditating on that stuff, God will begin to meet you there and show you more. And I'll give an example in a minute. But the next thing to look at is, and there's so much here, right? But these are just a few things touching on this. And I'm trying to keep up with our time. But we've got to begin to create, we want to have a count it all joy mentality. And so even that sometimes scares people a little bit. How do I count it all joy when I encounter various trials? And, it says in James, well, you got to think deeper about this. It doesn't say don't count it joy when things aren't good. It means it's a zero-sum game. We've got to cultivate joy. And so we teach this and how to do this married with the word and, sort of an exercise. And we can talk about that. But the point is, God wants us to live a life of joy. So what's the B side of that? Well, the B side of that is he wants us to enjoy our life. You can't separate these two things. So to live a life of joy means to enjoy your life. How do you do that? Well, you've got to we've got to let go of our from the neck up as our leader. We've got to begin to be led by the Spirit of God. Like it says in Romans 8, these are the sons, and it means sons and daughters of God, those who are led by the Spirit. but the Spirit comes alive and opens up and is edified by the written word. And that also renews our mind and keeps it off the world's stuff. So we can acknowledge circumstances. We can acknowledge there's a virus. We can acknowledge, political garbage or whatever. We can acknowledge a person that cuts us off in traffic, but we do not have to let that in our heart. So now we don't have to worry. Now we don't have to live in fear. Now we don't have to worry how our bills are going to pay. And I put that to the test years ago. And God delivered. He actually does what he says. So that's, so you want to be able to count it all joy. That means you get to enjoy your life. This is an adventure. It's not drudgery. You have people out there that need what God's doing through you to solve a problem, to bring something better into their lives. And if you don't do it, it doesn't happen. You are important. God saved you for this, not just to give you a home in heaven. It begins now. So we got to be joyful. We got to have that. I'm going to enjoy my life right now.
Yeah. One of the things that I was talking about with Liz earlier this week, my wife, is so many parents live vicariously through their children. That's why parents idolize their kids, is because they're living vicariously through their kids. And basically it's because the parents are not living out their own dreams and desires.
Yeah.
They've given up on their dreams and desires. So they want to put their kids in a position so that their kids can live out their dreams and desires. And that's why they hyper focus and assess on kids' sports or, whatever else, is because that is a part of their own dream and they're not living out their own dream. And it's just, to me, it's a reminder of like, man, get busy. Like, what's greater, your kids living out their dream or your kids seeing the testimony of a parent who's willing to live out theirs? Like, give me the second one all day long.
Yeah, that's right. We want to point our children to the living God, and we want to foster their identity that he's put there. And it's a big responsibility, but if it gets sideways, it really goes off track. And what happens at stronghold, kind of territory. But so we want to minimize duty, maximize desire, our focus. We're talking about focus, right? Keeping your eye on the why. And we want to cultivate a count it all joy daily, or at least, 4 or 5 days a week, a foundational thing. So joy keeps the enemy at bay. He cannot steal it when we are living it, exuding it, and focused on the joy of the Lord, right? That's our strength. And then the third one today I wanted to talk about, and we can go, I think we're good for a little bit longer, but and I know you can talk about this one too, but it is patience. And
thanks, Kevin. You're bringing that up and let Matt talk about this.
Yeah, well, it's really important, because what we're seeing is a lot of people are grabbing hold of this thing. Well, the Sunday model, it's a little rusty, not quite working the way it used to, or whatever. And I'm not beating it up. The church is people, but we see a lot of stuff going on. We see, that thing isn't what it was, and it's not going to go back to what it was exactly. It's going to be weird for a while. So we're not poo-pooing that. We're just saying we're going to move on, because we've got stuff to do as the church to forward the kingdom. And it's about everything, not about that. So what we see is, I'm just giving one example of this patience thing. We see people going, I don't know, I don't know if I can go back to that. I kind of like not doing that, or that's different now, or it ain't working for me anyway. But I don't know where to go. Oh, well, where are we going? What's God doing? Come on, God, you're supposed to connect the dots. It's like I learned to never quit a job before I got another one. But you see, that's okay. That's good practical stuff for a teenager. But that doesn't align with Abraham, go. It doesn't align with march around the walls, Joshua, and blow the horn, and the walls will fall. uh, God leaves us really, really hanging. Why? So we'll get focused on him, and that's our why. And then he starts giving us details about, and these things, we start to feel advocacy for people. We start to get creative ideas, and our purpose begins to bloom right before our eyes. So patience is huge. And the way I see it, because I'm a patient person. I did not used to be, but it is like it is very self-preserving, and it is an attempt to hoard time or improve on God's timing, or say that we are more merciful than him. So I just see it that way. When we look at it that way, then we can back off and go, whoa. I don't need to try to be patient. I need to let patience work through me and jump in his arms and enjoy the ride.
Well, patience is a fruit of the Spirit. And so it's not
right.
something that can be done anyway. It is a byproduct of abiding in Jesus and abiding in and living by the Spirit. Those who live by the Spirit shall be called sons of God. The fruit of the Spirit are these things. So patience is a byproduct. If there's impatience, it stands to reason that there is some aspect of the life that is not being led by Holy Spirit, because Holy Spirit cannot be impatient.
That's right. So, some people have this idea that, well, if I can, it's to store up in barns and my security is what I've got saved. If it's your job, then it's your job. Or if it's not your job, if you've lost your job, then it becomes what you've got saved. And if you lose what you got saved, then it becomes, pretty soon you start seeing God point all the way back to what's in you.
Yes.
You got nothing else to sell. All you got is you and him. Now what? Now that's what I lived out for years until it finally took. and so you and me and all of us, we've got to get there, however we get there. But patience is absolutely something that is required. You can't truly lead and change people's lives if you are trying to manage God's timing.
Make it happen.
And but I liken it to, it's like a room. You get to it ties right back in with rest. The beginning, people ask me all the time, how do I do this? Well, it always begins with rest.
Yes.
And it's Mary, not Martha. It's a seed. It sits in the ground. I've not had one person yet, if I say who hasn't heard this, but what is the first thing a seed does every time? Well, you got to germinate or got to sprout, or no, it sits in a dark hole. People don't like that, right? You want to get to a place, you want to lead, you want your life to be valuable. You got to live as Christ, to die as gain. When you get there, you're free from everything. Now God will do all kind of stuff through you.
Well, going back to, and we just had Matt Farshner is watching the show, and he just said, this is amazing. So I just want to recognize Matt. Thank you for that. I mean, and we so receive it. And appreciate you watching today, brother. One of the things that I really, really, really believe in all of this, Kevin, is that the dark hole seasons of life and the moments of truly waiting on the Lord, not on his promise, but it's when he becomes greater than his promise to us, and we get to that moment. What it's doing, and you've always said this, it's removing the compromise from our life so that nothing will ever be able to take it from us. If so many people achieve fame and stardom so fast, but there's compromise in their life. And that's why they die of heroin overdoses or they whatever, because they weren't patient to let it come on God's timing, or maybe it happened so fast they were not purified or prepared totally. And so they take the very promise of God and corrupt it because they have compromise in them. So just know that if it's a season of darkness and difficulty, if it seems like the Lord he's removing the compromise, because what he's going to entrust you with is bigger and greater than you could imagine. And he doesn't want you to be able to lose it through compromise.
Yeah. And now when you grab hold of that, now you're starting to trust him. Really, this is real faith kind of territory.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the easiest thing, but it's so good and real. And in 1,000 years, this is what's going to matter about your life. not duty, not mailing it in, not all this stuff. We're at the end of that, and people, it's falling apart. All right, so just to wrap this up, a couple of things real quick, just to go through it. And we've talked about this many times, but the teaching, and I'm just going to touch on it because we don't have time to get too deep into it. But we want to take to get into this mentality of focusing on the why. You got to have your kind of delight time. All right, so I have this chart that I've drawn out. I'm not going to show it, but we want to spend time, and I got to learn to feel the word. That means we are engaging the word in small doses. I wrote this down. I'll come back to it. But you want to dig into the word like it's steak, and you want to savor it and chew it and really go there and spend some time. And we have a whole course on this, but get into it in a way that you experience it. Okay. The next 10 minutes or whatever, you can be 30, but at least, 7 to 10 minutes, you got to cross a threshold and slow everything down. This is that patience thing. And the next thing is doing a what we call a joy journal. And you don't even have to write it down, but writing it slows it down. So you want to begin to be thankful for things, but you want to do it in a way that's profound. You want to do it the same way you're studying. Meditate on it. If you're thankful for your spouse or your children or your friends or your truck or whatever, thank God for it in a profound way where you're seeing it, letting it into your heart, and just truly giving it back to him. So that's number 2. That right there, even if you took 10 minutes and 10 minutes of that, I call that delight time. That's delighting yourself in him. You're focusing on him spiritually and through the written word, and counting it all joy. And now you're ready for the other side of delighting yourself in him, which is what?
Desires of your heart. He will give you the desires of your heart. Delight yourself.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So we call that desire time. So now you can step into that time. Just take 10 minutes. Then this is a spiritual landscape that you get to press into. Go there. Spend some time just praying and listening with expectation. And now you can go to that place and begin to, what is your perfect day? What would you love to experience? And you don't have to have any of the responsibilities and all the stuff that brings you right back to placating some logical mail it in life. You've got to be able to dream, and you've got to be able to lay everything down at the altar so that the kid who was in the womb, who's 6, the same kid who's 18, 30, and however old you are, is that person. Now God's trying to bring that person out because people need that person.
Yes.
For him to work through. That's fruit bearing. And so you got those 3 components, but you got your delight time and then desire time. And people don't do that.
Yeah, well, I love the 2/3. 2/3 of that time is spent on delighting in the Lord, and a third of that time is focusing on the desires of the heart. And this is the place where, talk about hard work or diligence or whatever. This is where you need to be diligent. This is where you need to labor to enter his rest. If you're going to work hard, work your rear end off at spending time delighting in the Lord and focusing on the desires of your heart, not over here of trying to make something happen. And that's the shift that happens when God then gets the glory, because that's a kingdom life.
Yeah, that's right. And so it is paradoxical. Labor to enter his rest is paradoxical. But what the heart, because the hard work here is yielding, is letting go. Exactly what Jesus did in the garden. He let go of his own will. Now that's profound. So we have to do that. But this helps the process, and it's a great practice. If you do it 3-4 days a week, it'll change your life. One last thing, and we'll wrap up. But so that desire thing, I shared this with one of our mentoring clients and good friends yesterday, and I'll plug in just whatever name. But so what he's looking at is his career and going through a major change, and we're seeing that everywhere. Not just the church model changing, but God's clearing the slate so people can start to stand up and be who they're meant to be.
Transition season. Yes.
So I'm just going to read this real quick. But I said to him, and I just texted him, but I said, if you could step into your very own unique plug-in, Joe Sample, if you could, I'll just say Matt Ham, if you could step into your very own unique Matt Ham dream business scenario, what caveats, or without caveats or yeah buts, what would it look like to you? What would it look like? If once you build your time out on the Word and to really pressing into God, He'll start showing you that. He'll search your heart and He'll show it. Some of it's there. You can step into that. And so then I said, just take the first step toward that in the spiritual landscape, and God will begin to nudge you forward. He'll show you more opportunities and provide you more opportunities. And the last, just to wrap it up, I said, keep it simple, keep it small, keep it focused, and do it in small doses. Don't get overwhelmed. Just have fun with it. This is praying and listening with expectation. It is subtle, but He will greatly, gently speak to you in this. And so I said, you start to feel it, see it more, and get excited like a kiddo. Have fun. This is an adventure. This is the goodness of God, and we need to press into that instead of trying to, I got to make it happen. That thing, it's dead. So here's the way. This is the way. This is Jesus. This is what He taught us. People don't get that.
Yeah, it is a new season, man. I mean, and this is kingdom teaching. It's the gospel of the kingdom, as you and I have said. It's beyond
really
salvation. It's why we're still here after we've been saved. It's bridging the gap between Sundays. It is the work that we've been called to as kingdom people, and it is the work that you and I do. If with everything that we do through UPrent and Life Center, man. So this is just been really, really good today, bro. Thank you for always taking time to pour this out. We want to encourage those who are watching this, like, get plugged in. We'd love to walk with you. The way that begins is by getting into the Portable Faith community. This is a $10 a month subscription, but it's more than that. It's not just about subscribing. It's about participating with us in this kingdom work. The money actually goes through our nonprofit entity. We take those resources, we bless those in the community through our different initiatives, but we also send out high quality, transformative content each and every day. But it is the doorway to get into mentoring, discipleship, groups, studies, business expansion, all the above. So the Portable Faith community is the way to get started. You guys can get plugged in at wakeupmyfaith.com. And then from there, we'll take a journey together, have a conversation about what your why is and how we can help you step into that and truly live the life of kingdom impact that you were created for. That's what we do. So Kevo, many thanks, man. Have an awesome rest of the week. I know I'll talk to you soon, but we'll see you guys next week on the show. Anything else you want to add?
No, just thanks for listening, and we just appreciate you very much. It really matters, but thanks for your attentive spirit. Very
Amen.
encouraging.
Man. We'll see you guys next week.